Hey, it's KimiK, and I think it's finally time we talk about Rollo's Return.
Anyone who's a fan of Vikings, or anyone who loves or loathes Rollo for hopefully the right reasons, will be able to agree with me when it's that whenever Rollo comes back, or whenever Rollo you're expecting him to do one thing, you always have to expect the unexpected with Rollo.
So of course, Rollo's actions have made some big changes in the latest season of Vikings. And with the teaser of his character actually coming into the fray on his boat right at the end of episode 10 of the first part A of season 5, it's very clear he's only just getting started. So let's look at Rollo as a character, his history, his motivations, his actions up to this point, and what he could be doing in Season 5, Part B. So to first understand Rollo's motivations and actions, we have to look at his history. All the way from Season 1 to Season 4, we've had this amazing complicated relationship between Rollo and Ragnar. Rollo has been this up-in-the-air character, switching sides, his loyalties tested in every corner of every season. Whether it's the Earl, Jarl Borg, or the King of France, people have always been trying to make a wedge in between Ragnar and Rollo. Ragnar would trust Rollo with his life, but not with power. He knew the relationship that Rollo had with him, that he would always fight with him and protect him and go with him, but if ever at one point he saw a chance for fame that would be portraying him to get that way, he would take it because he'd always been in the shadow of Ragnar. His achievements, his glory, his fame, his kingdom, everything he did made him more famous and bigger, and that made it so Rollo had to do something even greater to actually be in the spotlight ever. So keep that in mind because that's going to be a huge impact on what he does for his decision making in the upcoming season. Now, another huge part about Rollo's history we have to remember is that he had a deep love for Lagertha. Now, Lagertha is really important for this entire huge civil war going on. She's a centerpiece. Ivar is trying to get revenge for his mother's death because of her. Harold is trying to overthrow her. Bjorn trying to protect her. Uber is just kind of there. So people thought it was a bit strange that Rollo was backing Ivar and Vikserk and Harold when he loved Lagertha. So let's look back at what happened with Ragnar and Lagertha and how they first actually got together. Now we see this quite nice scene between Bjorn and Ragnar way back in season 1, where Ragnar explains to Bjorn how he came to meet his mother and earn her love. And to do so, he had to fight off a bear and a great hound. Now many people have interpreted this to be that the bear symbolizes Rollo and the hound represents Lagertha's father. And when we look through Vikings, we can clearly see that Rollo is paralleled with the bear over and over again.
He is the brother of King Ragnar. He fights like a crazy bear.
And I also see that the bear will be crowned by a princess.
But I will not be tied in holy matrimony to someone who is more beast than man.
And now another thing that's really important is the real-life counterpart to Rollo and his history. Now Rollo lives to a very old age and he becomes quite successful and one of the most famous Vikings in all of history, way more famous than Ragnar. And near the end of his death when he was quite old, he really hedged his bets for the afterlife. It's said that he really had a whole bunch of doubts about Christianity, his faith, and everything like that, and so he killed 10,000 people as sacrifices to Odin and gave 10,000 pounds of gold to the church. That way, he was good either way. This is the way that Rollo and his followers has approached religion their entire time. In history, it's said that Rollo's men would get baptized once, twice, even like 10 times, because when you get baptized, you get given a white cloak. And the whole reason he joined the religion and got baptized in the first place was for the promise of land the Frankers gave him. But as he came to the end of his life and he didn't need to put up a facade or do anything for more power because he felt like the end was coming very near, he was very old, well accomplished, he'd done his fame already, he really had second doubts, returned to the Viking world, contributed tons to it, trying to make sure to rebirth those roots. And this is what happens when we saw him go off on that adventure with Bjorn, and now again with the Civil War. So if these histories parallel at all, this will be the last of Rollo. This will be his last action in the series, and the closing of his chapter. So understanding all that history, let's look at the actions he's done already, and what that means for what he could be doing in the future.
I found myself playing Rollo having more of a kin with Hvitserk, because Hvitserk it really is, and you see it play out on screen, it's the brother that's just lost in the system somewhere.
So why did Rollo choose to fight against Lagertha and Bjorn, the people he most clearly has the connection with? The reason is Hvitserk. Now this would have taken us by surprise because they're very undeveloped Vikings a lot, but if we understand Rollo's point of view and the conversations he would have had when he came across to Frankie, would have talked with them, had made some plans, really got to know Vikings a lot more, understand his stories, his struggles and all that kind of stuff, and Hvitserk would have been the one that inspired him to join back in the Viking world, contribute his troops, and make that change. Now, as much as Rollo loves Bjorn, he has had so much fame. Bjorn Ironside, he's travelled Mediterranean, he's well respected, the oldest son of Ragnar. Uber has been the oldest son of the mother's side, and has got a lot of fame and respect just by proxy. It's always presumed he's going to have great fame and that Vikserk's going to follow him. And Ivar, of course, was chosen by Ragnar, went with him, has the support of the army, has all this backing behind him, and a great fate to have. But Vikserk is stuck in the middle. Rollo sees himself in Vikserk, the way that he was always overshadowed by his brother's success. But Vikserk has 3 brothers to contend with. There is just no way that without Rollo's support, he would be in the picture at all. And so I believe that Vikserk and him made a lot of plans for the future, and Rollo is backing him, not Ivar, not Harold, backing him to give him fame and maybe even a kingdom. Now there's a lot to unpack about Vikserk history, but he's widely believed to be the same historical character, Haften Ragnarson. Now Haften was another son of Ragnar who was incredibly famous, helped Bjorn, Sigurd, Ivar and all that conquer England, and he was even part of a lot of wars in Ireland to try and form the Kingdom of Dublin. If you want, I can do a whole video on Haften and the comparisons to Vikserk and what it could mean for his future, but for now you guys can read up on this link I'll put in the description below. So basically this means that Rollo will be the catalyst that makes Vikserk's character finally interesting, and Vikserk's success and fame will be the last tribute that Rollo gives to the Viking world.
There's some past problems he hasn't dealt with. There's a certain person that he never got together with. There's a certain person he needs to tell something to before he dies. There's some unresolved things, but again, don't expect the obvious with Rollo. Never expect the obvious with Rollo.
So of course Rollo also has some other things he needs to tie up before he closes out his character. One of them being this thing that was hinted at a few seasons ago but not really elaborated on, the possibility that Bjorn is actually Rollo's son, not Ragnar's. Now the evidence for this is quite thin, and I think it's just Rollo believing this, not really actually what the history is going to go with, what the Vikings is going to go with, but it's cool anyway. So I think that Rollo will definitely have to meet up with Lagertha, sort some of this kind of stuff out, say their good last goodbyes, and move on from each other. And while we're on crazy theories, also remember when Bjorn, way back when on that little trip in the Iceland areas, and he lived out in the Wops for a bit, and he killed a bear to survive. It's possible that was a representation of how he might in the future kill Rollo, who could be his dad, or at least his uncle who he's got a lot of bad blood with. And so that would be quite a funny, interesting theory, but that's really speculative. But Bjorn does have a great history with Rollo, whether he was his son or not. He has a lot of history with him. He was his uncle for most of his life. He was there, he helped raise him, he helped contribute to him. And none of that conflict between Ragnar and Rollo really bleed over to the relationship he had with Bjorn. So my predictions for Rollo's return in Part B of Season 5 is that Rollo will hedge his bets with the gods. He will kind of reconvert back into the Norse gods and find that connection again. He will offer land to Norsemen to resettle back there after the civil war is solved, and he will be a key figure in resolving the conflict that's happening in this entire civil war. He'll meet with Lagertha and Bjorn and help Vikserk, closing out his character arc, closing out a whole bunch of the stuff we've had for the last season, and ending his really cool, amazing character that we've had since Season 1. Meaning that yet again, another character from that very beginning generation will have moved on. Make sure to tell me your thoughts on Rollo's return in the comment section below, along with your thoughts about his relationship with Vikserk, Bjorn, Lagertha, and the entire Viking world. Hope you enjoyed the video, and have a great day.